What's up guys, Elliot here, and I've got an exciting video for you today. We're gonna be talking about Modern Nurture as an agency. This has been the single most impactful strategy that I implement for my clients to immediately increase their show rates, their close rates, their lead quality. So the sales team's like, wow, the leads are so good, Elliot. Or to help them increase their revenue, right? Actually become more profitable from ads. And I'll show you a coaching business that was doing under $1 million a month. They were never able to break above $1 million. And after I came on board with my team, we filmed a bunch of content, implemented this strategy. They were able to get to $1.75 million within 60 days. Another client, spending several $100,000 per month on ads, had about $1,000 CAC, a cost to acquire a customer. They were able to lower that to 800. Another client was struggling with show rates for their webinar. Incredible conversion rate if people showed up, but people weren't showing. So after implementing the strategy I'm going to teach you today, they were able to almost double their revenue in the first 60 days without changing anything else. Ad spend stayed the same. Presentation stayed the same. Everything stayed the same except this one system. This system works for local businesses, online businesses, coaching, which has been my favorite place to implement it, but it also works for local, right? I helped a retail company, a business that was in retail, absolutely crush KPIs at a big box retailer. I have a whole nother video on that. But let's jump in and just talk about the Modern Nurture strategy. And first, let's start with wasted time, right? A lot of times our sales teams are spending the majority of their time, up to 60%, just answering the same questions, handling the same objections, and managing the same expectations for every single prospect they get on the phone with. This system eliminates that, right? A lot of time goes to explaining information that is in the emails, but we all know most people are not reading the emails you send them before their phone call or strategy call or sales call, right? They expect you on the call to answer all those questions, and they become frustrating. And a lot of times, a lot of closers these days, you hit them with a few objections, they just give up and say the lead's bad, it's not a good fit for them. But if they were trained to overcome those objections, or if even better, the prospect never had those objections on the call, the sales call would go much better. So this system's gonna show you how to eliminate all this so you're not dealing with this headache in your, on your team. So why do people not buy? Or I guess a better way to put it would be, why do people actually buy? They don't know enough about your unique solution, right? They're still comparing you to others on the market. Your website might explain it, your emails, like I said, might explain it, but again, nobody is reading that information. And so it doesn't matter if you increase the frequency of your emails, rewrite your emails, hire the best email copywriter, all of those things will have some impact, but the majority of your prospects are not even reading your emails. So with this strategy, we go to where they already are, which is social media. That's where you generated the lead in the first place, on Google, on YouTube, on Meta, on LinkedIn. That's where you're generating the leads. And so that is where you want to go to keep nurturing them. Okay, so what is the Modern Nurture? It's a strategic content system that pre-sells prospects before they ever speak to a human being on your team. The result of this is people show up to your seminars, webinars, sales calls. They show up educated, excited, and ready to buy, right? They may have some questions, some objections, but if they show up after consuming all of that content, they are ready to buy. Now, there's two ways that I have implemented the Modern Nurture system. One is through front-end sales systems. So educate cold prospects who have not engaged with your sales teams yet. Content that builds awareness, answers questions, and drives opt-ins through ads and organic. Back-end sales system is once a lead has through back-end sales systems, once leads opt in or register for your event, the critical window between the webinar, seminar, or the sales call, we want to get as much content in front of them as possible. And this actually does a couple things, right? When a prospect sees your content right, it starts to build familiarity. And over time, right, time that passes and to content, right? So they might see one video, then they'll see another video, two videos here. And as all of these exposures happen, they start to grow more confident that you are the expert, you are the person that has the solution that they're looking for. Kind of the two places where I set up this content system for clients and where you can set it up in your own business, okay? Now, you might be wondering what content to post or what content to create. Now, there's three different types of content, right? That I put all content into three buckets, right? Because we all have, before we buy something, we have questions, we have objections, and we have expectations. Those questions need to be answered, expectations need to be managed, and those objections need to be overcome. And so every piece of content we create falls into one of those three. And a lot of it comes from just you as the founder, as the sales leader at the company, doing talk head content just like this. And other pieces of content will be, testimonials or case studies, employees, different people on your team, just showing and educating people about the entire business while simultaneously answering questions, objections, and handling expectations. Now, what this does, right? So imagine if you're like, there's a B2B company that sells. I'm technically under NDA with them, but they're a big company. You've likely heard of them if you're an active investor. Point is they spend a lot of times at conferences, right? And if you run a B2B business, you go to conferences, you rent a booth, you spend tens of thousands of dollars to build the most amazing booth, put your team up in hotels, and you shake hands, hand out business cards, and hope that those turn into deals. But what if instead of introducing yourself to strangers, your ideal customers already knew who you are, what your company does, why you're different than everyone else in the market, and they walked up and said, hey, I know exactly who you are, what you do, and why you're the best. I'd like to speak with you. Or when you did finally reach out to them through a cold email or a cold DM, instead of saying, hey, yeah, let me get back to you, or just flat out ignoring you, they were actually familiar with your content and said, hey, I've been seeing you everywhere. I'm actually interested in speaking with you, because they are already aware of who you are and what you do. All right. And that is the power of the Modern Nurture system on the front end and on the back end of your sales company. That is the power. That is the power of the Modern Nurture system working in your business on the front end and on the back end of your sales. Real results that businesses have had is most businesses, when implementing this, they see a show rate increase of 30 to 50%, right? So if they were at 20, their show rate could be 25 to 30% immediately the week after implementing the system. Close rates grow by 25 to 40%. The sales cycle or process, and especially for those large B2B deals, sales processes, those sales cycles get cut by up to 40% after implementing the system. And so it saves your team a ton of time and makes you a ton more money. Ignore this. This is a stat of how many leads in my. So the use cases for this would be, high ticket service businesses, retail and online products, enterprise SaaS businesses, right? So pretty much anything where you have customers that need to know you exist, and then they have questions, objections, you have a sales process involved. And it really, this applies to every business that any of us have ever purchased, right? Whether it's an HVAC system or a new software CRM for our business or a new marketing agency that we're gonna work with, it works for all of those businesses. So if you're an agency owner, business owner, online coach, if you implement this, you will start to see pre-sold prospects coming into your pipeline. And the additional kind of advantage, I briefly touched on this before, is the familiarity bias. This is something that Jeremy Haynes taught me, and the mere exposure effect. And so in this way, like the first time you heard one of your favorite songs, you probably thought, pretty good song. Maybe you just flat out didn't even like the song. But after time, after more exposure, more frequency of exposure, you start to have familiarity bias, and you naturally start to like and prefer the song. So the more you hear it, the more you go, yeah, it's a pretty cool. And right, and when you think of the mere exposure effect plays a very similar psychological role. Is the more you're seeing something or familiar with it, right? Whether it's a clothing brand, a brand of car, the more you see it, the more you become comfortable and prefer that brand or that product or that service compared to an alternative. I want to explain practically how to implement this, right? So I've talked about why it works, why it's amazing, and so hopefully if you're still watching, you're sold on that part. So to implement this inside of your coaching business, first thing you want to do is audit the business and really understand what are the repetitive questions that you or your sales team are getting, and also what are reasons that people don't buy. And so what I do for my clients is I'll go in and talk to old prospects who went through the sales process and decided not to buy, and I will understand where did things fall apart, what was unclear to you, why did you choose another company over this one, so that I can help guide my client on making the right content to avoid that in the future. But once you've really understood what are the questions, objections, and expectations that your clients need to have met, answered, and understood in order for them to buy and move forward, then you go into the production or creation process and you produce anywhere from 20 to 150 pieces of content addressing those gaps that you've identified during the. And when you go through and do the audit, right, you want to understand, right, like what are we solving for with this strategy, right? If we're solving for a lead quality issue, right, or let's do this. If we're solving for a lead volume issue, we'll start with lead volume, right? So we're running ads, but we're just simply not getting enough volume. And so maybe our audience, that is problem aware, we've burned through it, and so we need to develop more awareness. So we create, and that educates strangers, right? And so once we're doing that, we're educating strangers. Now we have more people who then, when they see a lead or conversion ad, they will. If you run a local business, like one of our recent use cases was a food company that was in Walmart, and people just weren't buying it. Brand new brand, no one's ever heard of it, and we're only in 107 stores at the time. And so we set up this system using the founder, some of the investors, the chefs behind it, the people behind the science that they have, and then dozens of UGC creators annihilated the local area with content. Just educate. We weren't trying to get them to buy anything. We weren't trying to get them to take any action except just to know the brand exists and understand why it's good. And they went ahead and we crushed it so much that we're actually going to be in 2,000 stores. So that's something I'm very proud of. And that's just in Walmart, 2,000 Walmarts. So we're going to be in a whole lot of other. And practically the way you set this up, right, is if you have, let's say, 50. And you've run ads before, that the algorithm will just allocate 95% of the spend, to like 2 videos, which doesn't really help you if your prospects are seeing the same founder video answering the same question, right? They have a lot of questions, a lot of objections, lots of expectations that need to be managed. So you want to create retargeting ads that have frequency, and you set this up on the ad. And so, for example, in this Walmart example, I set a frequency cap of per 30 days. So that forced any single person could only the 50 one time. Each video can only be shown to each unique person in that market one time per month. So that means in a given month, they could see up to 50 different videos from the brand. And so it creates this feeling of like, oh my God, everyone's in on this except me. What is this company that keeps popping up in my feed? And then that led to when they saw them in Walmart, they bought more stuff. All right, so that's now let's say you have a back-end problem, right? You have low conversion, low show, right? Your sales team struggling to get people to close on the calls, or you're having, a big issue with people not showing up to the calls, or you're having, I guess this would be part of conversion, like a low issue. And so you want to identify what part of the business, of the sales process is a bottleneck, and then attack that specific, part using retargeting, strategic retargeting ads. And same thing, right? So if we have a webinar that happens, every week on Thursday, then we're going to start before that event happens. Our goal is going to be to show, 40 to 80 pieces of content to every registrant. So typically, right, businesses, if you run a webinar, right, you get a lead, boom, exclude them. Don't show them any more ads. That's what everyone typically does. With this, you're going to exclude them from your top of funnel, but while they're waiting to attend their webinar and they're getting their texts, confirmation calls, and emails, which I hope you're sending, they're also going to be seeing dozens and dozens of pieces of content, and that's going to result in them excited, familiar, a lot less objections, more engaged, and best of all is the person in the ads, typically it's the founder, and hopefully it's the same person presenting the webinar, will come across almost like a celebrity in their eyes because they've just been seeing them in their feed every single day, half a dozen to a dozen times a day leading up to this event. So they're familiar, they feel comfortable, they just feel like they already know you before they've ever even met you at the webinar. So lots of residual bonuses that happen from doing this, okay? We set up the back end. And then you measure, right? So you want to obviously track your show rates, your close rates, the length of your sales cycle. A lot of this will result, the first metric you're going to see is just improved performance of your sales team, of your webinar. And so you just want to, your team to say, hey, the leads are getting better. That is the first metric that we're tracking. Inside of the ads manager, we essentially want to keep an eye on our free, and we want to make sure that our ads are staying below a 2x free. And this depends on how you set it up, but at the campaign level, at the very top of the campaign level, right? If we have, let's say 50 videos, we want to have at least a 30x, right? So about a 60%. You want to make sure people are getting through at least 60%. If they're not getting through 60% of the content before the sales event or before they exit that audience, you want to increase your budget. You need to spend more money. 60% is kind of the sweet spot that I found when I see real massive impact happening. But again, ideally, they get through even more than 60. So yeah, guys, let me know if you have any questions in the comments. That's kind of a detailed breakdown of how I, audit a business and implement these strategic content systems for them to break up bottlenecks, unlock growth, increase conversion rate. And so I hope I gave you enough information. If you have questions, drop them down below. I'll answer them so you can implement this in your business. If you want help implementing this, there's two ways that you could work with me. One is join Master Modern Marketing. It's currently priced at $197 a month. You get a 7-day free trial, and it comes with best guarantee of all, which is a money back guarantee. So you can join the community for 12 months. And if you don't get a ton of value, I'll give you back all your money. Try it for 7 days. I host 3 live weekly calls in a group setting where I will answer all of your questions and help you set this up in your business. And, getting it all to the technical, like the production flow, scripting, etc. And the third version, if you're doing at least $50,000 a month in revenue, go to contenttoscale.com. Should be linked down below, and book a call with me or my team, and we can actually do all of the work and implement this system for you in your business. I hope you found this helpful. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.